might turn out some econ for us too.
I'm interested in the content, not the looks.
Wow, they're very discerning. See, you can't judge a book by its cover, right?
If you haven't signed in, please sign in.
You want everybody to sign in? I want, okay. Do I get credit?
Yes.
Do I get extra credit?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
The credit that you get, Dr. Kiss, can you just put on my goals?
Sure. Yeah, we'll give you some for you too. How is it looking? Is that glary looking through those windows?
How do I do that?
Not a problem?
Not really.
Doesn't let it go. No? Nice view.
Sure, Rob, yeah.
There's lots of better. Yeah, we're bringing up for a surprise. Oh, we're in there, but you know, right? I thought it was a lot. Yeah, looking at it.
As we speak, I am recording it. I can give you a really weird voice too.
I never met you, though. Maybe I saw her around.
Yeah.
I heard you say it, well, balance.
That's exactly right.
Balance. Are you going to ask some tough questions? I'm just balance because I know her. I don't know this kind.
Regardless of the size of the difference.
In the beginning. Just because something starts with something doesn't mean it has to end with the same thing. I was way bigger. That's what the
I could probably do something, but I was thinking
you're not a business person.
What's that? Where are you from? Mexico.
Speaking
I've been in Mexico, not recently, but I've been there. Mexico City, I've been in Yucatan.
Can I ask you one another with PhD?
Because here's what happened. I was in Duke didn't have I finished all the coursework.
Everybody sign in.
Did all the prelim exams. And then the last dissertation. Just get started on that. I've been for 3 years. That's going to take a job since university. I think there's a bit there, right? The dissertation. I volunteered you and they offered me a contract. The next afternoon, I got a letter in the mail from this place called College. Somebody else something to do. Economics fair, I was interested in checking it out. And my folks have retired to Sarasota, so free trip home. So the next day I flew down. Got my dad's car, drove up here, and met with
And never
Nation Occupy movement today. I am Ashley Sismowich, and I will be your debate mediator for today. The debate topic for today is the Occupy movement is not helpful because the ideas are not coherent, consistent, or targeted at the real problems, and because movements like this have never changed anything sooner than they would have changed for the other reasons. Our debaters for today, arguing with the four side of the topic, is Kelsey Delisle and Dylan Giala. On the against side, we have Anthony Castillo and Thomas Giala. Each debater will have approximately 6 minutes to make their statements. For the opening statement, we will start with Dylan Giala on the four side of the debate.
We do not believe that the Occupy Wall Street movement is an effective approach at causing change in America. The movement may have good intentions, but is overshadowed by its lack of direction and no physical action. The people who can make decisions in favor of the movement are not being swayed by the protests around the country. I feel that the movement is a collection of ideas with no way of implementing them. Also, there are too many issues that the Occupy movement is trying to address. The movement, in the end, may be hurt by the huge ambitions and not get much done at all. They are attacking the essence of our economy and, more importantly, our country. I have learned that, like life, business is survival of the fittest, and those who adapt and succeed live on. I will close this paragraph with this. What would the country that this movement is striving for look like? There would be no competition, no drive to be better. Like it or not, we're the largest economy in the world for a reason. Capitalism works. So which is better? A big government that regulates or a big business that profits? Without this so-called evil machine that of our economy, we would be bartering for food and bringing our harvest to the market every weekend. Our capitalistic system provides the motivation to make a better car, a faster computer, or the next green product. In recent history, groups with extreme points of view on how to change our country have not had huge success at reaching their goal. The Tea Party movement, with their boisterous protests, got people with their point of view elected into office to try to put their message into action. The result of the infusion of the Tea Party supporters into the Congress has yielded an 80% disapproval rating. Less than 10% of the country likes the way our country is going in the Congress. I bet that most of the 10%, are supporters of the Tea Party protest. In closing, I feel that the disconnect results from both sides not being able or willing to examine another standpoint on the opinion. Clearly, the protesters feel that a man who takes a helicopter to work does not see the world as they do. They call this business person selfish and unwavering. However, if they took a minute to see things how the business person does, they would find that holding signs and chanting on the street is not an effective way to make change happen.
Next, we have Thomas on the against side.
Good afternoon. As my opposition has some very good points, I'd like to point out some of my own points. Many protesters, when you go by Tampa, when you go by New York, when you look on the news, have you ever seen one sign that says one thing? No. They all say different things. Why? The reason this movement has began to prosper across the country is because there's so many views, because so many people feel it's not just one thing that's wrong. Many authors, including myself, feel that if this movement were to actually come up with 1 to 5 specific points, and they weren't able to get these points finished in a certain amount of time, they'd be called failures. Why would they do this? Just a couple of things that the movement's trying to go for. So citing some demands of wrongful movement currently, the activists don't want to do specific demands. The elite has no intention of complying with specific demands, and so this is one reason. There are many sites and opinions that depict the fair tax code is one of the examples. Okay, as you can tell from reading the news, last year with the tax codes. GE actually had $14.2 billion in profits in 2010. They actually paid the federal government $0. This is actually less than I paid, and this is less than my father paid, and less than many of you paid. On top of that, they actually were able to do $3.2 billion in tax for the future years. So in case they actually made a profit in future years, they could actually use this tax differential for the future. The other company that did this also was Bank of America. They actually had $14.2 billion as well. The other thing that the protesters are upset about is the Electoral College. Many people that grew up in Florida, lived in Florida, remember in 2000 whenever Al Gore and George W. Bush for presidency. George W. Bush actually won the electoral vote. However, he lost the country's popular vote by 400,000. Many of the protesters feel that their voice is not being heard because of this electoral college. Why in the world would they go and vote and protest and everything, yet somebody that feels that they're more educated can make the final decision? To me, that's not even considered a popular vote. That's more of, you go ahead and decide for us, don't worry about it. The other thing that my opposition said was the Tea Party, how they demanded certain things. They actually were asked one question, which is very interesting. What don't you like about Obama? 19% of them actually stated they just don't like him. It's kind of funny how he can quote the Tea Party as doing these demands, yet they couldn't say, I don't like him because he smokes. I don't like him because he allowed money for his BlackBerry. There's so many other reasons, yet they generalize it. What's wrong with them generalizing than anyone else? In conclusion, my partner here has a lot of good reasons as well, and I hope he can help me.
For our next debater, we have Kelsey Delano, who's on the fourth side of the debate.
How would you define success for the Occupy Wall Street movement? Would you say that they're already a success because they've opened up a dialogue and spread the word about their cause? Or can they only be defined as success if they cause change in America? Simply complaining about corporate greed and taking concrete action to correct those grievances are two completely different things. And of course the protesters don't want to solidify their list of demands into specific actionable items. If they did that, they would risk alienating members of their 99%, and the number of supporters would dwindle. Having vague ideas fuels the aggravation and frustration of these 99%, but limiting these grievances to one or two goals would split the group's opinion. Everyone might agree that there's corporate greed, but how to solve it is where the difference lies. Occupy Wall Street is an outlet for frustrated Americans to voice their concerns, but it's not a way to pave a new road and change the corrupt system that's led us to this point. That's why Occupy Wall Street won't be able to help us move forward. Protesters are disappointed with the lukewarm attempts to fix the economy, but what about their efforts themselves, which can be considered lukewarm at best? What are they actively doing to make things better? How does the protesting help? They can talk the talk just like the politicians, but that doesn't mean that saying they want change will actually get anything done. Protests aren't very effective unless they lead to further action being taken. Protests are not an end to themselves, but a means to an end. That's why it's important for the Occupy Wall Street movement to put concrete actions behind their frustrations. We all know that getting Americans excited about change can just as likely be an empty promise. For the time being, the protests are unhelpful and won't fix anything at the rate they're going. They'll lose steam and the support of the American people, the 99% they claim to represent, without accomplishing anything.
For our last opening statement, we will now hear from Anthony Costello on the against side.
Good afternoon. I would like to begin my segment of this debate with some figures. 5,000 in Washington, D.C., 10,000 in Madrid, 10,000 Berlin, 8,000 Frankfurt, 5,000 Hamburg, 4,000 Vancouver, 3,000 Melbourne, 4,000 Athens, 3,000 Toronto, 2,000 London. These are but a fraction of the total amount of protesters operating worldwide who have all been inspired by and joined in solidarity with the Occupy Wall Street movement. How can we overlook this? How can we brush this movement under the rug and pretend it will simply go away? The fact of the matter is, we cannot. The Occupy Wall Street movement has spread like fire since the time of its inception. It has successfully struck a chord with hundreds of thousands of individuals around our globe and has allowed the spotlight to not only be turned on, but to be pointed at the right individuals. Before this movement began, the majority of our citizens here in the United States would have agreed that our economy was in a state of disarray. The only problem was that not many of them understood the mechanics behind the problem. No one really knew why they didn't have jobs, or why the income gap between the top 1% and the other 99% was so ludicrous. These are issues that Occupy Wall Street has been able to bring to the forefront. They've been extremely successful in educating the masses through their own willingness to stand up. This has led to a mass understanding of the true problems, thus creating a deeper drive for change throughout the American population. However, the message hasn't stopped there. You see, it seems as though the majority of the people worldwide feel as though the inequalities of their own societies have become too much as well. Occupy Wall Street has simply opened the door for all of us who have been knocking for a very long time. The main concerns surrounding the Occupy movement have been its lack of leadership, its lack of focus, and above all, its lack of demands. Critics of the movement, such as those gathered against myself and my colleague today, have debated the authority of the movement. They would have us all believe that without any true direction, this movement will simply dissipate. They tell us the movement will never accomplish anything substantial, and that it will only be a matter of time before it's seen as a joke. Unfortunately for my opponents, this cannot be further from the truth. First of all, one of the main goals of the movement so far has been to simply get the word out. They seek only to educate the masses and allow everyone to understand the kinks in the system causing the inequalities. The numbers that I presented at the beginning of my debate section have presented that they've been extremely successful with this message so far. Secondly, another goal of the movement is to eventually change the rules by which our society plays. In other words, the lack of leadership within the movement is by design. If an individual or group of individuals was to take charge of the movement, they would actually be acting against one of the movement's fundamentals, that of being a truly balanced and fair representation of the 99% as a whole. The quote-unquote need for a leader is simply a construct designed by the critics of this movement to afford them more of an argument against it. Now, if opponents of Occupy Wall Street really want proof of the legitimacy of the movement, let's show them. Let's mention the fact that that many appointed government officials have publicly shown their support for the movement, including the LA City Council and President Obama himself. Let's mention the countless celebrities who have made public appearances during many of the Occupy rallies and have given statements to the press regarding their support of the movement. Within the past couple of days, other more significant accomplishments have been made through the movement. On Tuesday, Bank of America announced it was withdrawing its $5 fee for checking accounts, which had been implemented barely a month ago. When CNN.com users were polled asking if they viewed this as the power being put back into the hands of consumers, an overwhelming 78% said that they did. With such tremendous pressure being applied to Bank of America, other large banks such as Wells Fargo and JP Chase also withdrew their plans for a similar fee. In a similar fashion, a date has been set for this Saturday, November 5th. The day is being dubbed National Bank Transfer Day and is being used as a deadline for thousands of bank customers to close out their accounts and to transfer their funds to local credit unions. The number of participants for this event on Facebook alone is over 70,000. Just yesterday, the Oakland Police Department estimated the number of protesters throughout their city to be around 7,000. These individuals created a general strike for the entire city in order to show their support of an Iraq war veteran who was permanently wounded by Oakland City police officers last week during protester arrests. The 7,000 marching through the streets yesterday successfully shut down Oakland's port, which is the 5th largest port in the U.S., by congesting the area so much as to not allow the big rig trucks to load, unload, or even move at all. And let us lastly remember the sheer size of this movement compared to other movements throughout history. If the civil rights movement could make such drastic changes in policy through a handful of American citizens, or if the Muslim citizens in Algeria can oust the occupying French government all on their own, Just think of the changes to inequality throughout the world a movement like Occupy Wall Street can inspire. From Sydney to Jakarta to Paris to Rome, Copenhagen, Reykjavik, Taipei, and the rest of the 1,500 cities already involved with this Occupy movement. Just imagine the impact the 99% will make in due time. Thank you.
We will now enter the rebuttal part of the debate. Each debater will have approximately 4 minutes to rebut their opponent. We will start with Dylan Giala.
Like our opponents had said, the protests in Oakland turned from, like what's been going on in New York City, into something that's more violent and trying to close down major parts of the city. It basically turned into the London riots, which completely went off from their main reason for starting it and went on to some whole other tangent, basically for the sake of rage. Closing a port and crippling the city's supply pipeline is hurting them, the businesses, people in the surrounding area. Oakland, San Francisco is a huge region, and closing off any part of that with the port is just hurting anything and not being positive at all in the movement. They had mentioned that GE hadn't paid any taxes. Well, they're working within the law. They're not doing anything illegal. If there's anything you want to protest the people making these laws, not the people following them. Go occupy DC, go occupy people who can make those changes or who do make those changes. Don't occupy the people affected by them. Basically, I thought that you wouldn't protest a car dealership for selling you a car with a bad transmission. You go protest the people who made it, not the people who sold it to you. You